He got 2 glasses from her small cooking area and poured some wine for both of them in separate glasses. But before he did that, he had stylishly sprinkled a powdery substance into her cup, without her knowledge. After Erica took the drink, she began to feel dizzy. Soon, she fell asleep. Kenneth was the last of his parents' 3 children and the only male child. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Nwosu, were very wealthy and influential in the community, and they were loved and respected by all and sundry because of their kind nature. Despite their wealth and affluence, they brought their 3 children up to love and respect everyone, rich or poor. Nobody wishes to be poor or born poor. We are only privileged. Respect everybody, their mother would tell them. The couple did their best to instill morals in their children. Kenneth's elder sisters, Bridget and Amanda, were very kind, gentle, and respectful. Kenneth also was kind, but he had a weakness. He flirted with girls a lot. At age 20, Kenneth already had 3 different girlfriends. He was in his 2nd year at the university, where he spent money lavishly, visited nightclubs, and drank himself to stupor sometimes. Every now and then, different girls on campus would fight dirty in the public. "I am his real girlfriend. You are just wasting your time," one of his girlfriends told another lady, one day when 2 girls clashed because of him. Usually, when such incident happened, Kenneth would just laugh over it. He really enjoyed being the man of the moment. "Girls are nothing to me but objects, and I can pick and drop them off whenever I want," he would often say. His friends tried to warn him about his reckless way of life, but Kenneth ignored them. "All you need as a man is to have money, and you will see girls flying around you like flies perching on a mango fruit. I have the money, so let me enjoy myself," he told them. Kenneth also broke up with his girlfriends at will. He could wake up one day and decide that he was done with any of them. In fact, dating and breaking up with girls was just a normal way of life to Kenneth. He continued with this reckless way of life till he graduated and was posted for the Compulsory National Youth Service Corps, NYSC. His service year was worse. Kenneth dated and slept with almost all the female Corps members he came across. He made endless and fake promises to them, promises he knew he was not going to keep. Although he spent a lot of money on them, he had no intention of keeping any. All he wanted was taste their honeypot. Out of the female Corps members Kenneth dated, there was one particular one named Erica. Erica was one very decent girl who deliberately, and for reasons best known to her, decided to keep her pure till marriage. When Kenneth asked her out, she told him that she wanted a relationship without intimacy. That sounded so strange to Kenneth, because he had never dated any girl under such condition. Sex was not negotiable when it came to Kenneth. However, hoping that she would change her mind along the line, he agreed to her rule and they began dating. The highest Erica did with Kenneth was to hug him. This irritated Kenneth so much, but he continued to play along. Erica didn't know that Kenneth had other girlfriends and partners. Kenneth was older at this stage and knew how to play his cards well. He made sure none of his girlfriends clashed. Everything was going on smoothly between him and Erica, but Kenneth could no longer pretend. He began to desire more. Erica was very beautiful, and he couldn't resist the urge to have her. He tried to convince her of the importance of intimacy in a relationship. It strengthens the bond and makes partners love each other the more. "Please, give me a chance to prove my love for you," he said, trying to convince her one day when he visited her. But Erica stood her ground. "I told you before we started, Kenneth. I will give myself out to only one man, my husband, not a boyfriend or fiancé," she declared. Kenneth began to feel like a failure. "No woman has ever done this to me. I must have my way with her," he vowed. They continued with the relationship. Then, a day to the end of their service year, he visited Erica in her apartment and went with a bottle of alcoholic wine. "Let us toast to a successful service year," he said to her after they exchanged pleasantries. "Sure," Erica replied, giggling with excitement. She wanted to get them wine glasses, but Kenneth stopped her. "You are my queen, let me serve you," he said to her warmly. He got 2 glasses from her small cooking area and poured some wine for both of them in separate glasses. But before he did that, he had stylishly sprinkled a powdery substance into her cup, without her knowledge. After Erica took the drink, she began to feel dizzy. Soon, she fell asleep. Kenneth poured some wine on her dress and body. Then, he gently carried her, laid her in bed, and did what he had planned all along. Erica slept all through and had no idea what was going on. Kenneth remained in the room with her after the act, feeling very fulfilled. Erica woke up moments later, and when she realized what had happened, she burst into tears. "What have you done, Kenneth?" she asked in tears. Kenneth pretended to be surprised at her question. "What do you mean, Erica? You were the one that asked me to do it. I was even surprised, although I knew you were tipsy. When I refused to do it, you began to pull me forcefully and spilled the wine all over our clothes. You continued to insist, so I had to do it." He lied. Erica was confused. She didn't remember saying anything, even though she wasn't so sure. She was still trying to figure out what exactly had happened when Kenneth moved closer to her, gave her a hug and said, "Does it even matter? I will marry you after all. So don't be hard on yourself." "Get out," Erica said gently, pushing him away. "What did you say?" Kenneth asked. "I said get out," Erica shouted. "I know exactly what you did and you will pay for it. I don't ever want to set my eyes on you again," she added angrily. Kenneth quietly walked out without another word, feeling very fulfilled. If only Kenneth knew what he had gotten himself into, he would look for a cool spot, sit, and cry his eyes out. The next day, which was their passing out parade day, all the corps members gathered at the NYC Secretariat to receive their certificates. They were all very excited as they moved around, exchanging pleasantries and taking pictures together for the last time. Kenneth arrived at the venue and began to greet some of his friends. He saw Erica standing alone at one end of the building. She looked so sad and withdrawn. He walked up to her, greeted her, and asked her what was wrong with her. She stared at him for a while before she responded. "You really want to know what is wrong with me? I will tell you, Kenneth. I am just feeling sorry for you in advance." Erica replied him without looking at him. "Sorry for me for what?" Kenneth asked, looking confused. "Is this about what happened yesterday? I already apologized and I am still here with you," he added. Just then, Erica looked straight into Kenneth's eyes. Her eyes, bald, sparkled bright like the sun as she mischievously smiled at him. Kenneth thought he was dreaming. He blinked his eyes severally, and when he looked at her again, she was looking normal. "Are you okay, Kenneth?" she asked, pretending as though nothing had happened. "I am fine. I think I am thirsty and need to drink some water. Excuse me," Kenneth replied and hurriedly walked away. Erica smiled again as she watched him walk away. Kenneth didn't go back to her again till they all received their certificates and left the secretariat. He returned to Lagos 2 days later and changed his phone lines. That was how his relationship with all his NYSC girlfriends automatically came to an end. His father, Chief Nwosu, made him the manager of one of his numerous companies, and Kenneth began to run the company. It was a wealth creation company. The company helps people learn how to make money and achieve financial success through expert advice, training, and resources. He managed the company so well, and his father was very happy with his performance. The company recorded a huge success the year he took over. His father made him the manager of another company, which was a production company. One would think that by this time, Kenneth should have been matured enough and do away with his promiscuous way of life, but no. He was only getting started. He began to date his very beautiful secretary. Every day, at the close of work, Kenneth would stay back in the office with his secretary, claiming to be working late. He did it with her countless times in the office. He also dated and broke up with some other ladies in the office, at one time or the other. When he was done with the secretary, he fired her for no reason, and that automatically ended their romantic affair. He continued sampling other girls. When he turned 30, his mother began to discuss marriage with him. She asked him to look for a decent girl to settle down with, but Kenneth ignored her. He was just not ready to settle down. One day, he was at a restaurant with his friends when Jane, a beautiful lady in her early 20s, walked in. Kenneth's eyes widened, and he took interest in her immediately. He got up and walked up to her. Jane looked radiant in a simple white blouse and blue skirt, and Kenneth couldn't help but admire her innocence and warmth. "Hello, beautiful. You're too stunning to be sitting alone. Can I sit with you?" he asked as he approached her table. "Sure, you can sit," Jane said, allowing him to sit. They had a chit-chat. From that moment, Kenneth pursued Jane relentlessly, showering her with attention and sweet words until she finally gave in to his advances. Weeks later, they began dating. Jane fell helplessly in love with Kenneth, and Kenneth in turn promised her the whole universe, even though he didn't mean it. He took Jane out for a date one day where he held her hand and promised her the whole world. "Jane, you're the most amazing woman I've ever met," Kenneth said, his voice dripping with sincerity. "I see a future with you. I want us to be together forever." Jane's eyes sparkled with tears of happiness as she hugged him tightly. Kenneth dated her for a long time until she became pregnant. His countenance suddenly changed when she announced her pregnancy to him. "That was not part of our agreement," he told her immediately. "We need to get rid of it. I am not ready to become a father yet," he added. He cajoled her and took her to a quack clinic where they got rid of the pregnancy. After she recovered, Kenneth took her shopping and bought her a lot of expensive clothes and jewelries. Then they continued with their relationship. Jane, being an inexperienced girl, didn't know how to prevent pregnancy. She became pregnant again a second time and a third time, and Kenneth, as usual, made her terminate it. However, after the third procedure, Jane had complications and her uterus was removed. Kenneth had promised to stand by her, assuring her that he would marry her and that they could adopt kids. This made Jane relax a bit. But what she didn't know was that Kenneth had already made up his mind to dump her. After she fully recovered from the third procedure, Kenneth visited her in her apartment and ended the relationship. He stood before her in her small apartment, watching as she sobbed gently after he told her it was over. "You're breaking up with me? After everything we've shared? After all your promises?" Jane asked in disbelief. "Please, don't do this, Kenneth, I beg of you," Jane begged him. "I'm sorry, Jane. You're a good girl, but I've realized we're not compatible. I need someone who can match my ambitions, someone from my world," Kenneth said coldly, not moved by her tears. Jane fell to her knees with tears streaming down her face. "But I love you, Kenneth. I gave you everything. You said we had a future together." Kenneth quietly turned and walked out of her apartment, unmoved by her pain. He moved on to another girl. He continued to use and dump girls until, one day, he walked into his company and overheard his marketing manager discussing business with a very beautiful and gorgeous lady. The lady sounded angry, so he walked up to them and asked what was wrong. She had paid for some goods online and was not satisfied with what was delivered to her. Kenneth apologized to her and led her to his office for a chit-chat. He found himself staring at the lady, who introduced herself as Vivian. He couldn't just take his eyes off her as she spoke. He had done the same thing with other ladies in the past, but this feeling was different. She had charmed him with her soft, innocent look. Kenneth concluded in his mind that he had fallen in love with her. After their meeting on that day, they exchanged contact. Kenneth invited her out on a date 1 week later and asked her to be his girlfriend. She was hesitant at first, but she gave in after some time and they began dating. Vivian told him she didn't want intimacy. "I am not a virgin, but I decided not to do it anymore until I am engaged or probably married," she told him. That made Kenneth to love her even more. He saw her as a decent girl. He was genuinely in love this time. He couldn't go a day without calling or hearing from Vivian. She was everything to him and more. He bought her expensive clothes and jewelries and took her out on dates in expensive restaurants. He couldn't imagine life without Vivian. When he told Ju-on about his relationship with Vivian, Ju-on began to laugh. It sounded funny to him. "Do playboys fall in love?" he asked, laughing so hard. "Well, I repented and I am genuinely in love this time," Kenneth replied with a grin. "Let's see how far you can go with it," Ju-on responded, not taking his friend serious. Kenneth was determined to prove Ju-on wrong. After about 6 months, he decided to propose to Vivian. He invited her out on a dinner date. They had a nice time and chatted happily. Then he went down on one knee and popped up the big question. "Vivian, I have never in my entire life loved a woman the way I love you. I am more convinced each passing day that you are the woman for me. Please, be my wife and the mother of my unborn children," he said, showing her the beautiful golden engagement ring. Vivian was so excited, she agreed to marry him, and Kenneth gladly slipped the ring into her finger. That evening, they ended up in Kenneth's house, where he made out with her for the first time. It felt so different, and he was really happy. He had made arrangements to go with Vivian to see her parents first, before taking her to see his own parents. Unfortunately for him, something unexpected happened. Kenneth tired calling Vivian one morning, but her lines were unreachable. He called over and again, but still couldn't reach her. He became very worried. He left office very early that day and drove straight to Vivian's house, praying and hoping all was well. When he got to her house, he saw her car parked outside, but there was another car parked beside her own, which meant that Vivian probably had a visitor. He wanted to ring the bell, but surprisingly the door was open, so he pushed it and went inside. As he entered the living room, he heard voices coming from Vivian's bedroom. He walked briskly to the bedroom, pushed the door open, and got the greatest shock of his life. Vivian was making out with a strange man, and she was so excited, doing it. When she heard the sound of the door, she turned to see who it was. She saw Kenneth standing there, shock written all over him. Without any remorse or apologies, she turned back and continued with what she was doing. "Vivian, what is going on here?" Kenneth asked in shock, almost thrown off balance. Kenneth, love, please excuse us. Wait for me in the living room, I will soon be done," she responded as though she was doing nothing wrong. Kenneth was angry and unhappy at the same time. He felt disappointed and disrespected. He quietly turned and walked out of the house and went straight to his car. He opened the door and sat down, trying to ponder on what he had just found out. "Is Vivian a runs girl?" he asked himself. "She looked so innocent and even refused to get intimate with me. That got me thinking I had found the perfect one. This is too much for me to bear," he said as he continued to talk to himself. After a while, he decided to leave. As he was about to close the car door, Vivian and the man she had been with walked out of the house, hand in hand and smiling. The man went straight to his car, started it and drove off. Then Vivian walked up to Kenneth and began to talk to him normally, like everything was okay. "How are you, my love?" she asked, sounding unconcerned. Without waiting for his response, she went on. "You can come in now. Let's finalize our arrangements on visiting my parents," she said, and turned to go inside, expecting Kenneth to follow her, but he called her back. "Who was that and what was that I saw? Was I dreaming?" he asked her weakly. "Oh, that was my business partner, darling. I just decided to thank him in kind because he has been good to me," Vivian replied. Kenneth felt irritated by those words. Without another word, he closed his car door and was about to drive off when Vivian suddenly began to laugh. She signaled for Kenneth to wind down the glass, which he did. "Lover boy, look at my face very well. Do you remember me?" she asked. Kenneth took a closer look. "I only know you to be the woman I just broke up with. Besides that, I don't know you," he answered, looking confused. "I am Chioma's friend," Vivian let out. Kenneth thought for a while and then remembered Chioma. She was his girlfriend in his final year at the university. He remembered how he dumped her for no reason after getting her pregnant and forcing her to get rid of it. He had not seen nor heard from her ever since he left her. Vivian cleared her throat, bringing him back to reality. "Chioma fell terribly ill after you left her. She almost lost her life, Kenneth. All because of you. Thankfully, she recovered. So, when you asked me out and I saw the sincerity in you, I decided to give you a taste of your own medicine, after I realized you didn't recognize me. My intention was to arrange fake parents for you to meet, then dump you on our so-called wedding day. So, count yourself very lucky." She paused to see Kenneth's reactions. Then she continued, when she realized her words were getting to him. "Before you think you used me, the other day we made out. I was in the mood and that was why I allowed you do it. So technically I used you to my satisfaction. It's not like you were so good in it anyways. Now, look at my compound very well. Do not let me catch you anywhere close to this house again. You won't like the outcome. I'm sure you would not want to tarnish the image you managed to build. Thank you for the ring, Kenneth. I will sell it," she quickly added and walked into her house after ordering the security man to ensure Kenneth left her compound. Kenneth was dumbfounded. He managed to start his car after he recovered from the shock. He drove away quietly. He got back home that night and went straight to bed without having dinner. He felt really sad and pained about what happened at Vivian's house, as he truly was in love with Vivian. The revelation from her came to him as a shock, as he didn't expect it at all. Even in bed, Kenneth couldn't sleep. He continued to roll from one end of the bed to the other. He stayed awake all through the night. At about 4 a.m., he began to doze and later fell asleep. He woke up at dawn with high fever. He managed to get up from the bed and went into the bathroom to have his bath. Then he drove to the hospital to get checked. After some tests were carried out on him, the doctor decided to admit him as his blood pressure was really high. Kenneth called Juan to inform him of his hospital admission. He also called Amanda, his elder sister, and informed her as well. By the evening of that same day, Juan arrived at the hospital to check up on him. Kenneth told him of his encounter with Vivian. Although Juan felt very sorry for his friend, he felt like he deserved exactly what Vivian did to him. "You see why I was trying to warn you? The way you feel is the exact way those girls felt, especially the ones that truly were in love with you," Juan said to Kenneth. He went on to encourage him to take it easy on himself. "Don't be too hard on yourself. Everything will be fine," he said to him. Amanda, Kenneth's elder sister, also visited him at the hospital the next day. She didn't inform their parents about Kenneth's admission at the hospital because their mother was hypertensive as well. Kenneth was discharged on the third day and Juin drove him home. He rested for 2 more days before he returned to work, determined to focus only on his work and forget about women completely. Kenneth truly stayed away from women and relationships completely for the next 6 months, until he met another woman whom he couldn't just keep out of his mind. Her name was Diana. He had visited his bank one fateful afternoon to have a meeting with his account officer. On his way out, after the meeting, he saw this beautiful damsel walking into the banking hall. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still. Kenneth admitted silently that he had never seen a lady as beautiful as her. "She looks like a goddess," he muttered to himself. But then he quickly reminded himself of his resolve to stay away from women. So he turned and walked out of the bank and went straight towards his car. He entered his car and tried to start it, but the car refused to start. He continued to try for about 20 minutes to no avail. He stepped out and opened the bonnet, staring at it, not knowing exactly what to touch. He was about to call his car repairer when the beautiful lady stepped out of the bank and walked up to her car. Surprisingly, her car was parked next to his. She noticed Kenneth struggle with his car and walked up to him. "Hello, sir. What is wrong with your car?" she asked politely. Kenneth stared at her for a moment, admiring her beauty. Realizing he had been staring for a while, he quickly replied her, "I drove it here myself before I entered the bank, and now the engine seems completely off." "Let me take a look," she said, moving towards the open bonnet. She asked Kenneth to go start the car, although he was surprised and wondered what a beautiful lady like her could possibly know about cars. He went into the car ready to start it. The lady quickly placed her hand on the engine and stared at it and passed a smoky substance from her eyes. Kenneth started the car and immediately it was back to life. He was so excited but surprised. He got down from the car and asked her what she did. The battery was not well positioned. "All I did was adjust it. I learned a little about cars from my late father, who was a mechanic," she replied him. That was how they became friends. They exchanged contacts afterwards, and Kenneth got to know her name was Diana. They became very close friends and eventually began to date after Kenneth asked her out. Kenneth tried to control his feelings for her, but he couldn't. He fell helplessly in love with Diana and couldn't just do without her. Diana also seemed to be so much in love with him. Unknown to Kenneth, he had entered into a journey that would shatter him completely. Kenneth had a smooth relationship with Diana. He loved her so much, and he made it obvious to anyone who came across them. He made sure she lacked nothing. Not like Diana was the demanding type. In fact, Diana never asked him for anything, yet Kenneth gave her everything. He felt like it was his obligation to make sure his woman was comfortable, and he did just that. Diana lacked nothing. Immediately, their relationship clocked 1 year. Kenneth felt it was time for them to take it to the next level. He made up his mind to propose to her. Then he remembered his encounter with Vivian and he became afraid. What if she, like Vivian, was related to any of the numerous women he once dated? What if she was not who she portrayed herself to be? Kenneth asked himself so many questions, but found answers to none. He confided in his friend Juon, who at that time was preparing for his wedding. He shared his fears and worries with him. Juon's response didn't do much to help him out of his dilemma. "Kenneth, honestly, I don't know what to tell you. I think you should just follow your heart," Juon said to him calmly. Kenneth decided to give himself some more time. "Let's finish up with your wedding first. I will think of what to do afterwards," he replied Juon. Juon's wedding took place 2 months after, and Kenneth was his best man. It was a glamorous wedding which had in attendance a lot of dignitaries from within and outside the country. Kenneth invited Diana and she attended, dressed in an elegant peach dress. 3 months after Juon's wedding, Kenneth decided to propose to Diana. He organized a small surprise beach party with close friends. Then he took Diana to the party. While the party was going on, Kenneth called the attention of all who were present. He went down on one knee and promising to love and cherish her for the rest of his life. Diana became emotional. She stretched forth her hand to receive the ring as tears flowed down her cheeks while all their friends and onlookers cheered happily. Later that day, Kenneth and Diana picked on the date for him to meet with her parents. On the agreed date, Kenneth drove all the way from Lagos to Oshobo with Diana. When they got to Oshobo, they drove to the outskirt of the small town. Her parents' house, a beautiful bungalow, was the only house in that environment. It felt strange to Kenneth. He wondered why her parents lived alone in that lonely area. However, he decided to put aside his feelings and just enjoy his visit. Her parents gave him a warm reception, and they accepted him wholeheartedly. He spent some time with them, promised to visit them again, after which they both returned to Lagos. 2 weeks after the visit, Kenneth also took Diana to his parents, and they also welcomed her wholeheartedly. Kenneth's mother, who had been praying for her son to get married, couldn't contain her excitement. She began to dance as she thanked God for answering her prayers and granting her heart desires. She was all over Diana, gushing over her. "You are so beautiful, my darling," she praised Diana, who in turn said thank you shyly. They began to prepare for their traditional marriage. Kenneth was determined to shut down the whole of Lagos on his big day. However, Diana insisted she wanted a quiet marriage ceremony, so Kenneth agreed. He felt like he had made the best decision ever in his life and couldn't just wait to be called Diana's husband. Finally, the big day came and few friends and family gathered at the big hall in Lagos. Their traditional marriage ceremony was held and everyone was happy. Juan congratulated Kenneth with a big hug. "Welcome to the League of Responsible Men," he teased as they both laughed happily. Kenneth and Diana had their honeymoon at Obudu Cattle Ranch Resort in Cross Rivers State, after which they returned to Lagos and settled down for their married life properly. For the first few weeks, everything went on normally. They both left home for work every day and returned in the evening. Diana dutifully took care of the home, while Kenneth also proved to be a loving husband by always lending a helping hand. However, after about 3 months, Kenneth began to notice some strange things. It started subtly. Kenneth woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of whispers and faint sounds coming from the living room. At first, he dismissed it as a trick of his imagination. He turned and saw his wife Diana sleeping soundly beside him. He ignored the sound, hugged his wife and went back to sleep. The sound continued anytime Kenneth woke up in the night to urinate. He kept on ignoring it until one night he became curious and decided to find out what exactly was happening. He crept out of bed, careful not to wake Diana, and tiptoed to the living room. The whispers grew louder as he approached, but when he turned on the light, the room was empty. Everything was in its place: the sofa, the coffee table, and the family portrait they had taken after their wedding. There was no sign of anyone or anything that could have caused the noise. Kenneth became afraid. He was sure he heard voices. He switched off the light and waited for a while to see if he would hear the voices again. After waiting for about 5 minutes without hearing anything, he returned to their bedroom. He tried to pretend that he probably was imagining, or maybe he wasn't sure of what he heard. But as he laid next to Diana, who was sleeping peacefully, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was definitely off. A week later, Kenneth again noticed something strange. The air around Diana began to feel very cold when he laid next to her in bed. No matter how warm the weather was, the air around her just felt unusually cold. It wasn't the kind of cold one could attribute to air conditioning. It was like the chill of a graveyard at midnight. Diana, however, seemed completely unaware of it, as she always slept peacefully. One evening, as they were watching television, Kenneth decided to bring it up to see her reaction. Not wanting to hurt her, he asked, "Diana, do you feel cold? Maybe we should turn off the air condition. What do you think?" Diana turned to him with a soft smile. "No, darling, I feel perfectly fine. Maybe you should have a warm bath." Her response did little to ease Kenneth's growing unease. He started keeping a blanket nearby, wrapping it around himself whenever the chill became unbearable. Some weeks later again, just a week to their first anniversary, something dramatic happened in the middle of the night. Kenneth had woken up to use the toilet. As he moved closer to the toilet door, he heard the sound of the tap running. He initially thought it was his wife, so he turned to return to the bedroom to wait for her to come out. When he got back into the room, he saw his wife in bed, sleeping soundly. Who then is in the toilet? Do we have a visitor that I am unaware of? Even if we do, we have a guest room and a toilet in it, or am I dreaming? He asked himself so many questions. He then moved back to the toilet. As he was approaching the toilet, he could still hear the sound of water pouring on the floor, but immediately he opened the door, the sound stopped. Moving in, there was no water on the floor and no sign that the tap was recently used. He became scared and wanted to run out, but he managed to urinate. When he returned to the bedroom, he began to hear voices, the same voices he had heard coming from the living room. They sounded like they were having a meeting. They spoke in a strange language that Kenneth could not understand. It was so strange. Kenneth began to hit himself to be sure he was not dreaming. It dawned on him that it wasn't a dream, it was real. He was still lost in thought when he noticed that the weather had changed. There was gentle, cool breeze all of a sudden, like it was about to rain. Then came lightning and thunder. The light flashed through their bedroom door, which was wide open. Kenneth saw a ghost-like figure standing at the entrance with shiny eyes. "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," he screamed, closed his eyes tight and covered his ears. He began to pray, asking God to keep him and his wife safe. Suddenly, he heard someone laughing hysterically in the bedroom. He opened his eyes and lo and behold, it was wife, Diana. Kenneth became very terrified. He wanted to run out, but he was too terrified to lift his feet. Diana suddenly stopped laughing, looked at him lovingly and began to speak. "My darling husband, you don't have to run. I will not hurt you. If I wanted to hurt you, I would have done that long before we got married," she said calmly. Kenneth began to sweat profusely. "Sit down, Kenneth. You and I have a lot to talk about," she said to him, pointing towards a corner of the bed. Kenneth managed to sit down. "Kenneth, in all honesty, I love you. I have always loved you, even before we met again," she began. "Met again?" Kenneth asked in shock. "I met you for the first time at the bank," Kenneth said, shivering. "Talking about our meeting, I was at the bank because of you. I was the one that stopped your car from starting so I could meet you outside. All I did was touch the engine and it came back to life. You will understand soon. Like I said, I have always loved you, and that is why you are still unhurt. The only thing I want from you is to take over the duties of the wife in the house while I become the husband. I am not asking for too much. Or am I?" she asked. Kenneth didn't say anything. He kept shivering and sweating. Diana suddenly stood up, walked towards the wall and leaned against it. "I told you we have met before. Look at me closely," she said. Kenneth turned to look at her. Diana suddenly transformed to the one person Kenneth thought he smartly took advantage of. Erica. She appeared in the same dress she wore on the day Kenneth had his way with her, and she was crying profusely. "Do you remember me now?" she asked in tears. Kenneth went on his knees immediately and began to beg her. "I am sorry, Erica. I was young and didn't know what I was doing. Please forgive me." Erica didn't respond. She just continued to cry uncontrollably, while Kenneth continued to beg her. After a while, she spoke up. "If only you know what that singular act cost me, you would know that you do not deserve to be alive. That act sent me to the great beyond and put my parents in eternal sorrow. I know you will not understand now. I will explain to you when the time is right, but for now, you are my slave and you will do exactly as I say," she said to him. With that, she stretched her hands towards Kenneth and passed a smoky substance to him. This made him loose the memory of everything that happened that night. She transformed into Diana again, and they both returned to bed like nothing had happened. From that day, Kenneth became the errand boy of the house. He obeyed every of Diana's instructions without complaint. He cooked and cleaned the house thoroughly every morning before he left for work. On his way home from work, he would go to the market and buy things for the house. He also made their dinner. All Diana did was have her bath and look beautiful. She stopped going to the so-called office. She claimed she worked. Once in a while, she would drive round the town or go shopping, after which she would return home. Joanne and Kenneth's family were unaware of what was going on, as both of them still appeared in public and family gatherings as the perfect couple they thought they were. This continued for another 1 year, until Kenneth's mother began to have some very scary dreams about her son. She saw Kenneth being chased by a masquerade one night. In the dream, Kenneth continued to run helplessly and shouting for help, but none came. Mrs. Nwosu woke up, panting heavily. She mumbled some prayers, after which she called Kenneth. He picked up and told her he was fine. On another occasion, she dreamt again, and she saw Kenneth tied to a tree in a very thick forest. He was being whipped by a woman, whom Mrs. Nwosu had never seen before. The woman was crying as she continued to whip Kenneth, who continued to beg her to forgive him. Mrs. Nwosu woke up with a start. She burst into tears and cried profusely while begging God to have mercy on her son. The dream felt so real. Again, she called Kenneth the next morning and he sounded very fine. She decided to visit her pastor after she dropped the call. "I can't afford to lose my only son. These dreams are not ordinary and I must do something fast," she said to herself. She stood up and began to pace up and down the bedroom, muttering some words of prayers. Her husband had travelled to Abuja a day earlier on a business trip, and there was no one to share her dream with. She thought of calling the pastor, Pastor Jeremiah, but it was too early to make such call. She continued to pace up and down, impatiently waiting for dawn. At 6 a.m., she called her driver and asked him to get ready to take her to church. At about 6:30, they were already on their way to church, even though she knew the pastor wouldn't be in the office at that time. She had to wait till 10 a.m. before Pastor Jeremiah finally showed up, and she was ushered into his office. After exchanging pleasantries, she began to narrate her nightmare to him, with a shaky voice and in tears. Pastor Jeremiah listened with rapt attention as she continued to talk. "I saw my only son being tied to a tree in a thick forest, and a woman was crying and whipping him seriously. He was shouting for help and begging the woman for forgiveness. I know my son is in danger, Pastor. Please help me. I don't want to lose my son," she concluded. "As long as Jesus is still Lord, you will not lose your son," the pastor responded. He held her hands and prayed with her. After the prayer, he told her to call her son and ask him to come to church immediately. Mrs. Nwosu immediately dialed her son's number, not minding that Kenneth's house was a 2-hour drive to the church. The phone rang immediately, but it was Diana who picked up. She greeted her mother-in-law politely and told her that Kenneth left his phone in the house and had gone to the office. "Don't worry, Mama, I am on my way out now. I will stop by at his office to give him the phone," she promised, and hung up. Kenneth's mother stepped out of the pastor's office and went into the church to pray, hoping that Kenneth would call her back after some time. She finished praying and waited for another 1 hour, but Kenneth didn't call her. She began to dial his number again, but this time it was off. She quickly returned to the pastor's office and told him about it. Taking a look at his wristwatch, the pastor decided that they should go to Kenneth's house instead. They set out immediately in Mrs. Noiseau's car. They drove to his office first, since Diana had told them that Kenneth was at work, but his secretary told them that Kenneth hadn't been to the office on that day. "He has been off and on the office these days," she informed them. This got his mother even more scared because Diana had told her that Kenneth left for the office that morning. She and Pastor Jeremiah hurriedly left the office and drove straight to Kenneth's house. They arrived at the house and immediately they stepped into their living room. Pastor Jeremiah sensed the presence of a ghost and began to pray in tongues. Kenneth's mother quickly joined him in prayer. As they were praying, Diana walked into the living room from their bedroom, having a piercing and angry look. "I knew you were coming. You are welcome. What can I do for you?" she asked them. "Where is my son?" Kenneth's mother asked her. "I need to see him immediately." Just then, Kenneth stepped out of the kitchen holding a tray with 2 glasses of juice for Pastor Jeremiah and his mother. "You are welcome to our house, Mummy and Pastor," he said, smiling widely as he dropped the tray on the table and returned to the kitchen. His mother burst into tears immediately. "What have you done to my son? Why is he the one doing the serving? He is supposed to be the husband and head of this home," she said as she continued to scream. Pastor Jeremiah tried to calm her down, but she screamed even louder. After a while, he was able to calm her down. Then he turned to Diana and began to talk to her. "Young woman, I am Pastor Jeremiah. I have seen through you and I know that you are not naturally a wicked person. There is no smoke without fire. I know that your husband must have hurt you really bad. What has he done to you to deserve this punishment?" he asked calmly. Diana looked up at the pastor and began to clap her hands gently. "You are truly a man of God, and I am going to answer your question just because of your manner of approach, otherwise I wouldn't have. I knew you were coming and I think it is time to speak," she said to him. "Kenneth destroyed my life, and he threw my poor parents into eternal sorrow," she began. "My real name is Abiola, but I adopted the name Erica as I was growing, although you all know me as Diana. My journey began in Bayode, a small village in Oyo State. I was my parents' only child till my death. I was born into a very poor home. My parents were farmers who toiled day and night on their farm, but harvested very little. They toiled endlessly under the harsh sun, but their efforts yielded little. The soil seemed to work against them as they always recorded very poor harvests, even when other farmers had bountiful harvests. Food was not much of a problem, but we hardly had money for life's other needs. Clothes, books, medicine were luxuries we could barely afford. My parents had tried everything they could to give me a better life. I was their only child, and their dreams for my future were the fire that kept them going. Yet, attending school was a constant battle. My parents scraped together every coin they could lay their hands on just to send me to school. Yet I was often sent home because the fees, as meagre as they were, went unpaid most times. I watched my parents struggle daily to make ends meet. I loved them dearly, and it broke my heart to see them suffer so much. I remember the days I walked to school with worn-out sandals, my feet dusty and rough. My classmates with neat uniforms and shiny shoes would laugh at me. In fact, I was an object of mockery in my school. But I was not discouraged. I loved school. It was a place where I could dream, where I believed that one day I could rise above the life we had. But those dreams seemed impossibly distant. By the time I reached my 3rd year of secondary school, I was 16, and life had grown even harsher for me and my parents. I missed weeks of school because we couldn't afford the fees. When I finally returned, it was with a heavy heart and a growing despair. It was during this time that I became friends with my classmate, Tolani. She became my best friend, my confidant, and the sister I never had. Tolani was different. She was not like other students who often laughed at me because of my worn-out uniform and old school shoes. She was so nice to me, and I could say she was the only reason I always looked forward to going to school. She asked me what was wrong and why I was out of school almost all the time. Then I told her about my struggles, my parents' financial status, and how I hated watching them suffer. She listened carefully. Then she said something that changed everything. "I can help you," she whispered that afternoon as we sat under the mango tree behind our school. "I can help make your parents rich, but you have to trust me." I stared at her with my heart pounding. "How possible is that?" I asked her. "There's a way," she said with a low voice, "but it's not something you can tell anyone, not even your parents." Who wouldn't want to escape poverty? I agreed without hesitation. Anything at all that would make my parents wealthy and put a smile on their faces was fine by me, as long as it didn't involve taking human life. That afternoon, Tolani handed me a small white cowrie shell and instructed me to place it under my pillow before sleeping. "Don't tell your parents," she warned again. "This is between us." That night, I did as she said. Sleep came quickly, and when I awoke, I found myself in a strange place. Around me were girls my age, all dressed in black and red, their faces calm but their eyes filled with a mysterious light. They had all joined the group, seeking one favor or the other. Tolani was there too, smiling at me. "This is where it begins," she said, taking my hand. She stepped forward, still holding my hand. "This is my friend Abiola. Her parents are very poor and life has been so unfair to them. I brought her here this night so we could help her," she explained. I was asked to say with my mouth what exactly I wanted from the group, and I told them I wanted my parents to become wealthy. The leader of the group stared at me, her presence commanding and her gaze piercing. She explained the rules to me. She said they could grant my family wealth beyond my wildest dreams, but there was a price to pay. I was given 2 options. I was to stay away from sexual relationships and remain a virgin till age 30, as I would need to make some rituals every month during my monthly flow, and only a virgin could perform those rituals. The second option was to inflict me with a strange illness, which would last for 10 years, after which I would be free forever and my parents would keep enjoying their wealth. To my 16-year-old mind, the first option seemed easy and I chose it without hesitation. They made some incisions on my body and gave me a bead to wear. Then I was taught some incantations for my monthly rituals. They assured me that it wouldn't affect me in any way in future as long as I remained pure till 30. I was told that after age 30 I could stop performing the rituals and it wouldn't affect my parents' wealth at all. I returned home and did exactly as I was told. Overnight, my family's fortunes transformed. That year, my father's farm flourished as never before. We harvested more than enough to sell and began acquiring more land. Soon, we were the wealthiest family in Bayode. My father hired workers and my mother bought fine clothes. My parents moved to the big city and I was sent to the best schools. It was at this time that I adopted a new name, Erica, to match my newfound status. I dutifully continued with the monthly rituals, without informing my parents about what I did. I was so grateful to Tolani for initiating me into the group. Life became so good for me and my parents. Every month I attended the group's meetings, using the cowrie Tolani gave me. They always reminded me of the stakes, break the vow, and everything would crumble. At first, keeping the vow seemed simple enough, so I wasn't bothered. But as I grew older, keeping my promise became a struggle. Every man who showed interest in me wanted something I couldn't give. They left, one after the other, calling me frigid or accusing me of playing games. I told myself it didn't matter. I had a duty to my family. There was a particular one I fell helplessly in love with in my 3rd year at the university. His name was Mike. He also insisted he must go down with me, and when I refused, he took a walk. Then I realized that having a relationship without intimacy was almost impossible. I felt very bad after Mike left. The loneliness cut deep. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, questioning why I had agreed to such a life. Then, during my NYSE year, I met Kenneth and he asked me out. I was older, but Kenneth didn't see it as a problem. When I gave him my condition for a relationship, he initially disagreed, but he agreed after some time. For the first time, I was hopeful. Kenneth and I grew close, and I began to believe that perhaps love could exist without conditions. He would hold my hand, look into my eyes, and promise me the world. Little did I know that Kenneth had other plans. Then he visited me just a day to the end of our service year. We had a drink together. I didn't know that he added a substance to my drink. I slept off immediately after, and Kenneth had his way with me. I was already 29 years. I had just few months to complete the monthly rituals and be free forever. But he shattered everything. Everything fell apart. The group summoned me soon after. I thought they were going to empower me or even help me to fight Kenneth, but I was wrong. Their leader's eyes burned with anger as she spoke. "You have broken the vow. Now your family will lose everything. They will be poorer than they were before, and no man will ever desire you again. You will live in loneliness and despair for the rest of your life." I begged for forgiveness, but there was none to give. True to their word, my family's fortunes vanished overnight. Fire mysteriously broke out at my father's farmlands and his other businesses. Everything was consumed in one day. My father fell terribly ill and months later and passed away, leaving my mother and me to fend for ourselves. We returned to Bayode poorer than ever. My once beautiful face grew skinny and unrecognizable. No man looked at me twice. My mother became a beggar and I joined her, driven by shame and hunger. Months later, consumed by anger and a thirst for justice, I returned to the group. I begged them for one last favor, revenge against Kenneth. He had taken everything from me. I wanted him to suffer as I had. The group leader listened to me attentively, then spoke words that broke me. "We will grant your wish, but there is a price. To exact revenge, you must die and be reincarnated. You will have 5 years in your new body, and then you will die a second time." I didn't see that coming. I thought for a while, and then I agreed. What was life to me? We could barely afford to eat. Worst of all, no man wanted me. I agreed without hesitation, although I felt so sorry for my mum. I asked them for a very beautiful and captivating new body, and they agreed. That night, I went to sleep and didn't wake up the next morning. True to their words, I was sent back with a new body. I was given special powers too. My new body was everything they promised. Strong, beautiful, and powerful. I returned to the world with a fire of vengeance burning inside me. I tracked Kenneth's every move, waiting for the perfect moment until we met at the bank, and the rest is history. Lest I forget, my so-called parents were ghosts as well. Everything about me has been fake. By next month, it will be 5 years since I returned. That means my life will be taken again. This time, I will be leaving with Kenneth. Nobody can stop me, Diana concluded. There was a deep silence after Diana finished talking. Kenneth's mother sat on the floor, crying profusely. She couldn't hold back her tears as felt really sorry for Diana. Even Pastor Jeremiah went quiet. In all his years of pastoring, he had never handled a case as complicated and emotional as Diana's case with Kenneth. Kenneth's mother finally found her voice after some time. "Oh my God, Kenneth did that to you? Despite my effort as a mother to instill morals in all my children, I am really disappointed," she managed to say. The pastor also cleared his throat and began to speak. "Young lady, you really went through hell. I cannot even begin to imagine what you have been through. Your anger is justified, honestly. Maybe I would have done same or even worse if I was in your shoes. But I want to beg you to forgive Kenneth. He was younger then and didn't know what he was doing. Taking him will not undo what has happened. It will not change anything. Please, forgive him. Whether or not you were asked to remain a virgin till 30, the right thing to do is to remain untouched till marriage. But you will hardly find a man who will agree to such an arrangement these days. The world is so corrupt that young people no longer see premarital sex as a big deal. Don't get me wrong, I am not trying to justify Kenneth's actions. He had no right whatsoever to have done what he did to you without your consent. I am only asking you to please forgive him. And for the rituals you did, you see, the devil will never give you something for free. There would always be a price to pay. God is the only one that can bless you without asking for something in return. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 10, verse 22, the Bible says, "The blessing of the Lord it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it." I know you did it out of ignorance and the love you had for your parents, so I am not here to judge you. Please forgive Kenneth, the pastor concluded. At this point, Diana transformed into Erica and wept bitterly. The pastor and Kenneth's mother kept begging her to forgive Kenneth. She finally spoke up after a while. "I came all the way for this. I am not going to leave my aim unachieved. You said taking him won't change anything. I think you are right. But it will give me closure and I can rest well knowing that the one responsible for my predicament paid for his action." Erica fired at them in anger. She turned her back against them. Kenneth's mother went on her knees and began to beg Erica. "I beg you in the name of God and whatever you hold dear, please forgive him. I wish I had the power to turn back the hand of time. I wish I could undo all that has happened. Please forgive me, forgive my son," she continued to beg as she cried helplessly. "I will forgive him on one condition," Erica finally let out after a few minutes. "He must look for my mother and build her a house in Ararami, a town very close to Biodi. He must also give her some money to start all over again. She now goes about Biodi village, begging just to survive, and people hardly even give her anything. She has no home, no family, nor friends. The whole village treats her like an outcast because they believe that she and my father did some sort of money rituals and that she is only reaping what she sowed. She needs to leave that village to regain her sanity, make my mother happy again, give her a reason to live. That is all I ask for, and I will leave," she concluded. "He will do it. We will do more," Mrs. Wusu cut in. "I will see to it myself. Please, just forgive my son. Go to Bayode in Oyo. When you get there, ask for Aye Market. Enter the market through the eastern gate. You will see an old, wretched-looking beggar just by the gate. That is my mother. Tell her that you are Avio's friends from Lagos. I will give her a sign before you get there," Erica informed them. "Thank you so much for forgiving him," Pastor Jeremiah thanked her. "Please, I would like you to give your life to Christ quickly. He loves you and wouldn't want you to perish." Erica smiled weakly. "It's too late, Pastor. Just pray that God forgives me all my shortcomings and accept me into his kingdom. That is all you can do for me now," she told him. Just then, Kenneth emerged from the kitchen. "Pastor and Mum, food is ready. Should I set the table?" he asked. Nobody replied him. Erica stretched her hands towards him and passed a smoky substance to him. He immediately regained his sanity. Seeing Erica, his mother, and Pastor Jeremiah, he went on his knees and begged Erica to forgive him. "I will do anything just for you to forgive me. I'm truly sorry," he said as he cried. "I have told your mother what I want from you. Ensure you do it." "I am still around and I am watching," Erica told him. "Let this serve as a lesson to you and to the young men who forcefully have their way with ladies or deceive them. Not every woman is ordinary. You are lucky to have a prayerful and sensitive mother. She is your saving grace. Go and look for my mother and make her happy again." With that, Erica disappeared. Kenneth sat on the floor and cried properly. He regretted his actions once more. His mother took him along when she and the pastor were leaving. She couldn't stop thanking God for saving her son. 3 days later, Kenneth's father returned from his business trip, and his wife narrated all that had happened. He immediately ordered the driver to get their bus ready for their journey to Bayode. Very early the next day, Kenneth and his father set out, with their driver driving the bus. They drove for about 3 hours and finally got to the village. Following Erica's direction, they found her mother, sitting by the eastern gate of Ajje Market, begging for alms. They introduced themselves as Abaromi's friends from Lagos. Surprisingly, she mentioned Kenneth's name and told them that her daughter had appeared to her and told her they were coming. They took her away from the street to Araromi town and lodged her in a hotel. Then, just like Erica asked, Kenneth bought a piece of land and they built her a very beautiful and well-furnished bungalow there in Araromi. He also built her a small store in front of the house and filled it with some goods to keep her busy. Then he placed her on a monthly income of N100,000. Although everything they did couldn't take away the loneliness she felt, having lost her daughter and husband, she felt grateful to God for taking her off the street and giving her a better life. Kenneth was too afraid to get married again. He decided to remain unmarried for the rest of his life, but there was more coming his way. Jane was still out there. Dear young men, let this be a wake-up call. Life is not a game, and people are not toys. Every heart you break, every lie you tell, every girl you use and dump, it all comes back. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day. Because karma is patient. Respect women, value honesty, build your life on truth, not tricks. Be a man who uplifts, not one who destroys. The world needs more kings, not players. If you've watched till the end, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories with deep life lessons. Until next time, stay real, stay kind.